Now, as you think about some of those structural pieces, do you think that that is equally challenging for both men and women as they're parenting, or is it the burden overwhelmingly on women because of the traditional caregiver role that they have had both in Western society and, frankly, in most civilizations?
Yes. Yeah, I think it falls disproportionately on women. I think that was something that we really didn't talk about until the pandemic era. Um, and then now we have research to support this. We have research indicating that women take on a disproportionate amount of domestic labor. We have research to support the idea that women take on disproportionate amounts of childcare, that women are almost always the default parents in their homes, even when they are breadwinners. So yes, and it absolutely is. I think there's also this piece that we need to talk about where if you look at a mother's algorithm on social media, it's almost certainly going to be very different than a father's. I can see that in my own home. My husband and I have very different algorithms and feeds, and we are targeted in very different ways. I also think that there is just on a cultural level, there's a very different standard to which women are held and mothers are held. I think that if my husband takes our children out, he almost always is complimented. And if I take our kids out, we don't really get that. And that's not the greatest challenge of parenting by any means. It's not the underappreciation, but it does feel good to be appreciated. And it does feel good when your labor and your work and your time and your energy are praised. So, yeah, I think that unfortunately it's still not equal.
Expand a little bit on that concept of default parenting. I've seen you mention that in your writings, and it's certainly a topic of conversation in general. Define that for our audience who might be a little less familiar with our terminology in the West. When you say default parent, what are the parameters of that?
Yeah, so I can give you a little bit of an example of what that looks like in my home. On Monday, my children had the day off. My husband, he worked like it was a normal day. And, I had the kids. I took care of them. I had my schedule cleared up. They have a half day on Friday. I'm going to be the one who's with them. I take every sick day. I take anytime they have a day off from school, I take that. And it happens for a variety of reasons. I think that the wage gap plays a big role there. I think in a lot of cases, a family is prioritizing dad's career because that's the career that really keeps the lights on because, men do get paid more. That is a fact. But it can look any number of ways. It can look like that really kind of concrete, anytime there is a gap that needs to be filled, you are the parent that is filling it. It can also look like your kid's school is only going to call you if they're sick and they need to be picked up. It can also look like the doctor's office will only have your number on file and call you. It can really look a whole number of ways. And I think sometimes it is very obvious, like I think it is in my household. And sometimes it's a little bit more insidious. Sometimes you just notice that you are the one who is looking at your clock around that 3 o'clock hour and knowing that your children need to be picked up while your partner is maybe able to kind of get lost in what they're working on. So it can look any number of ways, but essentially it is that you are the safety net kind of at the bottom of the base. And if anything needs to be done for your children or your family, you're the one who is going to do it or have to set up somebody else doing it.
So, in some ways, that is not dramatically different than past generations where the mother was sort of assumed to be the head of the household, responsible for all the caregiving duties. What feels different now is that that expectation hasn't changed all that much. Maybe it's evolved a little bit, but now there's a whole set of other pressures that come with all of the responsibilities beyond parenting and beyond caretaking and the
Mhm.
balance you're trying to strike with that.